Hello again, I am the narrative beard of wisdom, and today we are going to fix Wreck-It Ralph. The first thing about Wreck-It Ralph is that we have to see what the problem with it is. I liked it just as much as everybody else, and there is just one little problem that we have to deal with. The first thing that we have to ask is how many realities are there within Wreck-It Ralph. For example, we have our reality. Okay, human reality. That in the story involves the threat to the community of the game, of the fixed game. We can disconnect the machine, and therefore we can disconnect their worlds. Human reality also involves players. The existence of the games are due to human use. That's what they are here for. They are here to be games. Human reality is both in the game a threat and a purpose. Games exist in order to give human beings entertainment. Everything is basic so far. Now we also have the electronic or digital reality of the games. And here is where we are going to stumble with our problem. The thing that we have to ask is if Ralph is evil, because that's one of the roots of the game, of the adventure, that Ralph is evil. He has to go to a villain's support group. That's what Ralph has to do, because he's evil. Now, is that true? If we see Ralph do anything that is evil, you know, that is the 30th year party at the Fix-It game, at the Wreck-It Ralph game, and he accidentally kills Fix-It, right? But he does that out of clumsiness. He doesn't do that out of evilness. There isn't a single action done by Ralph that proves that he's evil. And that's because there is a confusion in the narrative between two realities. In the digital world, we have the real life of the electronic creatures that are involved in those games. The real life, the digital life. And we have the game itself. And the game itself is a job. Or at least that's the way they see it. Or at least that's the way they act upon it. Right? No one is afraid of Ralph outside of the game. They just dislike him. Why do they dislike him? They don't give us a motive for that attitude. They don't give us anything. Why should Ralph be an outcast in the game itself? Not within the game that is played and that Ralph has to fulfill as a job, but outside of that, you know, the place where the party is, the place where the evil support group is, all of those are the characters' real life, and they all participate in the game, but they participate in the game as if it were a job. Ralph is evil within the job. He's the nasty villain of the game because he destroys, he kidnaps everything, but that's just a job. It isn't real. The reality is the activities that they have beyond their job within the game. You know, they're going at nights, the celebration afterwards, all of those things are the lives of the characters. The problem here is that the narrative confuses, for the characters themselves, confuses this reality with this reality. And someone that is a villain here becomes a villain here, although that isn't really what happens. And that is the flaw within Wreck-It Ralph. That is the problem with Wreck-It Ralph. That the storytellers failed to separate those realities and their motivations and their natures and so on. With this, we have identified the problem. To summarize the problem, we have a good character that is supposed to consider itself evil because the characters in his life, in opposite to his job, confuse his role in his job and his real life. We have an evil character that isn't evil at all, and that is a problem. But how do we fix it? How do we get Ralph Real's nature through and still get into the problem that Ralph gets into? That's the narrative challenge. That is the thing that we have to fix. That is the thing that we have to imagine in a different way in order to make it more coherent. Ralph gets so disappointed by the acceptance of his peers that he decides to get a medal, right? So this is the motive behind Ralph's actions that unchain the real story of Wreck-It Ralph, and we all know that that story belongs to Vanellope. Vanellope's story is the one that I liked and the one that makes Wreck-It Ralph a good movie. But the thing is that Ralph has to be willing to leave his world to get a medal and get into a problem, because that's the way he's going to get to Vanellope's world, and he's going to try to sort of help her, and at the same time he brings the problems. He brings the problem of the box. Vanellope's story is also linked to Turbo's story. And Turbo is a true antagonist of Wreck-It Ralph. So what we have to do is we have to change this happy ending filled with whining, filled with unnecessary self-pity that doesn't help the story. He's whining about being an evil character. All of those things aren't unnecessary in this narrative if we are going to give it the strength that it really deserves. Well, the first thing is that we have to keep Ralph within character, and we have to differentiate between the reality of the game and reality of the real life within the digital world where Ralph and all the others exist. We have to keep it coherent. The thing that we could do is that there is a 30-year anniversary. Ralph is just as welcome in any party as the rest of them because he's a good guy. He might identify with those whose job is to be the evil character, but that doesn't mean he's evil in itself. They are telling stories. There we hear the foreshadowing of Turbo. And Ralph, for one reason or another, wishes to have a medal. It's been 30 years. He has never had the job of getting the medal. He always gets the mud. You can always make jokes. They're all good people in their real life. Therefore, they all get along. You can imagine any dialogue that you wish, I don't know, between Ralph and Fix-It. Fix-It and Ralph are the most popular characters because they are the main characters of the game. They are talking and they are challenging each other to do some crazy stuff, to do some different stuff. Why can't we just give him the childish wish of getting a medal? And that's all it requires. If Ralph wants a medal because he has never had one, just because he's curious, just because he's competing with Fix-It in an I dare you action, would be enough to set Ralph on his curiosity quest. That's all it's needed, because the real story of Wreck-It Ralph is Vanellope's conflict with Turbo. Ralph's self-pity and desire to be the hero in the movie itself is just the pretext that gets him to this world. Instead of getting a pretext because he considers himself evil because his group considers him evil and all of that, and he's an outcast, we can give him a whim. That's it. That's all we can. That's enough to fix it. Give him a reason to go somewhere else. He has never had a medal. He wants one. That's it. He's curious about how it would feel to have a medal. He's challenged by his friends. Fix it. In a way that he has to prove that he's, a big guy, and goes to Medal of Honor in order to get his... It's a Medal of Honor? Well, he goes to the other game that starts the conflict. That's the way I would fix it. And it would be enough. It would be enough to keep the story going. It would take out all the self-pity, all the whining of Ralph, and the desire to prove himself, and the desire to get a medal, because he has never gotten one, should be enough for the story. That's the way I would fix it. And we don't need Ralph to be the enemy. We don't need him to play an evil to pretend that he's an evil character in the real life of the digital world. All we need is to give him a reason to move between games. Something which is daring and crazy, but also that could awaken his curiosity of how it would be to earn a medal. That's all we need. For 30 years, he hasn't earned any medals. He doesn't mind because he knows that his job is to be the bad guy. That shouldn't be the problem. His desire and curiosity should be enough to get him into the other game, the one that involves the medal, and he's stumbling into Vanellope's world. That should be enough. The thing that we could use for him to suddenly want to have a medal, besides the 30th anniversary, would be, or could be, a challenge from Fix-It. There is no reason why they shouldn't tease him. There is no reason why they shouldn't behave as a normal community. That's all it requires. If you realize that there is no point in using Ralph as an evil character, he becomes part of the community. And there are plenty of reasons to have conflicts in the community, and plenty of reasons to have jokes, darings, or just plain curiosity to know how it feels to win a medal. That's all that you need. Why? Because the real story behind Wreck-It Ralph is Vanellope's conflict with Turbo. Therefore, all we need is one reason to get Ralph into Vanellope's world. And that reason can be anything except the whining and feeling bad of Ralph for being a villain. Because he isn't one. He plays a villain inside the game. He isn't a villain in real life. In real life, Turbo's a villain. Because he's a villain inside the game that he's playing, and he is a villain outside the job of playing the game. And no need to have a character whose nature isn't the one we are telling the audience it is. Ralph isn't evil. The real story, Vanellope's story, works pretty well as it is. That's how I would fix Wreck-It Ralph. That's it. Okay, so that was the problem with Wreck-It Ralph, and that's the way I would fix it. I hope I made myself clear enough, and I hope you liked it. Any commentaries, any criticism will always be welcomed if it is proactive. And I hope you join us next time. Thank you for your time.